everyone, and welcome to another episode of Next Up Narcissism. Today's episode is really good. It's an honor. We have Dr. Les Carter with us. Dr. Les Carter is a clinical psychologist. He is a best-selling author, and in the past 40 plus years, he has conducted more than 65,000 counseling sessions and many workshops and many seminars. He specializes in anger management and narcissistic personality disorder. In 2018, Dr. Carter founded Surviving Narcissism. His goal is simple: to explain narcissism and its powerful impact on relationships, then offer alternatives for healthy living. So in today's episode, Dr. Carter and I are going to get into the big question that everybody asks all the time, and that is, do people with narcissistic personality disorder know what they're doing? Do they care that they're doing it? And can they change? So stay tuned. I think you guys are really going to love this episode and get a lot out of it. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Next Up Narcissism. And today I am honored to have a specialist in narcissistic personality disorder, narcissistic abuse, all things narcissism, Dr. Les Carter. I could not be more excited to have you here. And I know that what you're going to share with us is going to be extremely helpful to so many people.
Well, thank you, Jamie. And I'm familiar with your work, too. So just know that it goes both ways. Thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you. So I'm just going to hit the ground running with this because this is the question I get all the time from people, from patients, families, everybody. And I'm sure you get the same too, is does somebody who has narcissistic personality disorder, do they know what they're doing when they cause harm to others? Is it intentional? Is it secondary? And what is going on? So that's a loaded question, but let's start with the infamous, do they know what they're doing?
Okay. First, let me just address one thing. When they hear the word narcissist, it's almost as though there's a pathological fear that they have regarding that word. It's like, you're not calling me that word, are you? And they just think of it as a dirty name.
Yes.
And so, which tells you something already, because it's like, well, if you're being an objective person, then you would just say, well, why don't we talk about it? If you're asking that question, I'd be more than happy to discuss it with you, which would be a very non-narcissistic way of responding.
I love that. Yes.
Okay. So the question is, do they know that they're being narcissistic? What they know is that you're an idiot. And I don't say that.
No, it is. It's true. They know you're an idiot.
And
literally.
Their
Yes.
mind is like, if you question me, there's got to be something wrong with you.
Yes.
And so the defenses that they have are so automatic and so, frankly, pretty absurd that it's like having a rational discussion about something like this is almost impossible. So now, going a little bit further, though, it's really interesting when you break down the whole concept of narcissism. What we're talking about is narcissists are people that have high control issues. These are individuals who don't empathize. They have to constantly one up, which means they want to be in the superior position. They're incredibly selfish. They manipulate, they exploit, they have an entitlement that they think that you're supposed to cater to them, and they don't see it. At least they don't see it in an honest kind of way. So there's a lot of pathology that these people bring to the equation. But there's one really, really interesting ingredient that I find that says the answer to your question is yes, they do see it, even though they don't want to see it. And I want you to think, have you ever been around a narcissist who keeps secrets? And the answer is, oh yeah, 100% of them, right? Have you ever been around a narcissist who kind of fudges with the truth? Yeah, they do that too. Or have you ever known a narcissist who is evasive or who does what I call boomerang communication? Me, what about you? And you're nodding your head because it's like, yeah, that just kind of goes with the turf, doesn't it?
But I think the question is what's involved in order to be able to do that.
Yeah, well, exactly. And
Yeah.
so the fact that they can be secretive and evasive and manipulative, it's kind of its own confession. It's their way of saying, hey, look, there might be some things about me that you're picking up on that you don't like. And so I don't want to go into that space because I don't want to incriminate myself. That's their acknowledgement that says, yeah, there's a problem here, isn't there? And so indirectly, they understand that there's something wrong. Does that make sense?
No, it makes a ton of sense. And I like that you kind of put it on two major points. One, that if you're communicating or having a disagreement or even having an all out battle with somebody else who is not a narcissist, does not have narcissistic personality disorder, even after their anger calms down, let's say, and then things kind of subside, usually there is some sort of conversation to be had about that. And when you're dealing with somebody who in a relationship has narcissistic personality disorder, there is no open line of communication unless it benefits them, which this type of conversation would not. It exposes them and they're not going to do that. And the second thing I love that you pin it on is, if my 9-year-old, okay, let's say she does something wrong and she lies to me about it. She knows she did something wrong. She knows, but she doesn't want to tell me that. And why doesn't she want to tell me that? Because she doesn't want to admit the truth. Why? Because she knows it's wrong. And the difference between the 9-year-old and a narcissist is that eventually she'll cave, right? But a narcissist will gaslight you and make you feel so delusional and so crazy that maybe you did misperceive it. And so that's how they get away with it. The one thing I would add, and I hear this often, and I'm sure you do too, is this myth that, or this misconception that narcissists can't control their anger. And what I find interesting is that, how many times, and for people listening, and how many times have we seen this where somebody will absolutely lose it, rage, or just scream, and the things that they'll say to them, only then for their phone to ring and they pick it up mid-argument.
Well,
hello, hi, this is Jamie Zuckerman. How can I help you? I mean, right? So somebody who can't control their anger can't do that.
yeah.
Right? They can't be at a school meeting for their kids and then get into the car and lose their mind. It doesn't work like that. And so I think that's the other thing I would throw in is that they're actually pretty damn skilled at controlling their anger because they use it as a strategy.
You are so right. Going back to your comment about your 9-year-old kid, go into developmental psychology, and 9-year-olds are still in that concrete thinking style of, of processing the world. There's right, there's wrong, there's black, there's white. And so if I tell a lie, I'm going to get in trouble. And so in that early stage, I call it the pre-adolescent stage. You sit down and say, now you know that you are going to get in trouble if you say something that's false, and so we're going to have consequences. Let's talk about that, and you teach them those kind of things in that concrete kind of way, knowing hopefully that in those later years, the teenage years, and then the young adult years, you're going to be adding to your instructions, because as they grow older, they're going to be able to grasp abstractly values and standards and principles, and you start connecting the what you're supposed to do with the why you do it, and then you teach the child to claim and understand the better alternatives for themselves. It's not for show. It's not for trying to make themselves look good. And eventually, as they enter into their adult years and they get deeper and deeper into some of their abstract thinking and self-reflection, then they make the adjustments, and hopefully anyway, they can go on and have productive lives. I know for me, I was in graduate school from ages 22 to 26. I went early and finished everything by the time I was 26. But those 4 years were transformative for me. Because it's like, okay, I need to know who I am and what I think, and any kind of input, and we would have times where we would discuss personal flaws, etc., and all. Narcissists do not get to that stage. They're back at that 9-year-old level. And I don't say that in a demeaning kind of way, but it's like they haven't grown up.
No. I
And
agree.
so there's a side of them, just like that 9-year-old kid that says, yeah, I know I kind of blew it, but I don't want to have to admit it.
Right.
But then narcissists, instead of figuring out, hey, look, where does this fit in with my values? They go deeper and deeper into their own defenses. And I say that narcissists do know that there's something foul that they're doing that offends other people, which is why they're secretive, etc. But then the rationalization ingredient can become so powerful and so strong and so overwhelming that it overrides the truth.
And I got to tell you, even doing this, for so many years, I can honestly tell you that I think the rationalization part for me as a psychologist is still the most mind-blowing to me. It really is. It's the part of all of this that really just is like almost so unsettling still. It's like, I know it happens, I know they do, but the way that they do it is so, it's almost like I say this all the time. I almost wish they could take that effort and energy and ability they have in twisting that rationalization and that truth, everything, and put it into something so super productive. I really do, because it's so just nuanced and just
Well, see, let's take what you and I are both saying and then add something to it. We mentioned that they need to learn how to take the behavioral stuff and then attach it to an internal sense of reasoning. And then along with that internal reasoning, they need to have a notion of where their internal confidence comes
mhm.
from and just who they are and their definition of themselves. And again, narcissists don't go there. So notice what that does. It basically means that they don't have anything from their interior to draw upon. They're
It's
empty.
empty. It's empty.
They're empty inside. And so what they do is they focus on the externals, which means you. That's where you come in. And so if you were to say what you said just a few minutes ago, hey, look, the anger is just not working. We need to do something about that. Let's make an adjustment. The person that has that internal strength to draw upon says, it's worth examining that. If you, Jamie, who I respect, have something important to say, I'm going to take a hard look at it because that's what I do. Narcissists don't go there, so they continue to look outside, and then you'll notice that they have outside-based form of communication. Things like they blame you. If I'm angry, it's because you were wrong. Or if I'm angry, that means you need to change. Or if I'm angry, I'm going to rage, but I'm justified because you are so inappropriate. Or I'm going to hold you in contempt because you did. And so it's all externally based.
Yeah. Even down to cheating. If you cheated, it's because you made me cheat, or
I had a bad relationship.
yeah, yep, absolutely. Do you, so let me ask you this then. Do you think then that that's where the kind of the underlying functional difference between, let's say, somebody who has narcissistic personality disorder versus somebody, let's say, who is raised in a family where there's a narcissist and they model the patterns of narcissistic behavior on a superficial level, but that's where it stops. And I think that's where the difference that you're talking about, at least, is that they may exhibit on the surface these patterns of behavior that look very similar, but the function's different in that when brought to their attention, even if it's difficult to change, they are able to draw on internal values, internal experiences, and kind of just their internal core self. And they're able to do that, which is kind of the difference that you hit that kind of point in the road where you either split left or right.
100% correct. I'm retired now from my therapy practice. Obviously, I do all my YouTube stuff and all now. But when I was in my practice, I would just eat it up. When I would have a patient that was, let's say, between 18 and 25, because that's when they're doing their adulting, and without having to be harsh and mean spirited towards mom and dad, we can say, well, you're at a stage in life where you're looking back thinking there are some things in my family life that did and did not work. Let's identify it. Let's figure out what it is. And there's some new things that I want to add that would be different. What would that look like? And you can kind of coach them through that adulting
Yeah,
process.
I love that
And
too.
again, narcissists like, why would I need to do that?
Right. Right. And you also, if you have somebody that exhibits maybe the patterns on a superficial level, the difference also is that when they hear that they've hurt somebody, they have empathy, they have remorse, they don't want to hurt people, and they know that their behavior is resulting in that. Whereas a narcissist, if I need to get what I want and you get hurt in the process, well, you were in my way, that's your fault.
100% correct. And that's that externally based, rather than
Yeah.
thinking, did I do something that contributed to this? If so, I'd like to make an adjustment.
Yeah. Even if it's hard.
Which means you're going into your interior space, and you're confident enough to be able to say, I made a mistake. One of the problems that narcissists have is they think that if they admit weakness, that means they in fact are weak. When in fact, and I know that if you admit a weakness, paradoxically, that's when you're illustrating a form of strength.
That's right.
They don't get that paradox, and you used the word nuance a few minutes ago. They don't get that nuance to save their life, and they operate on an entirely different level.
Yeah. Do you think that, then this leads me to the second big question that I get a lot. So based on all this information and everything we've been talking about thus far, do you think that it's possible for narcissists to change?
Yes, but I'm going to give a real big qualifier to that
Yeah.
one. From time to time, I would get somebody who had some pretty strong narcissistic patterns, and a major crisis occurred. And it's like, okay, something's got to give here.
What kind of crisis? What typically just...
Well, I'll give you an illustration. There's a member of my extended family who is now in the neighborhood of 40, who in his 20s was Mr. Party Animal, and just friendly but selfish, just grossly selfish. And he almost lost his marriage and all of that. And he began realizing, I've got a drinking problem. And it's killing me. It's killing my relationships. A lot of passive aggressive stuff that was going along with it. And he went to first rehab, and then he got himself into AA and therapy. And it took him a couple of years, but it's like when you're around that guy right now, I mean, I love him dearly because he's so authentic, and it's like he gets it. And he confronted himself. It took some time. He had to go back and do some family of origin kind of work. So every now and then you get someone like that, and they've hit the wall, and they finally say it's not working. Now, if you're into AA, step one is you have to admit that everything is crumbled and my life is out of control. Step two, I have to learn to appeal to my higher power, and we go from there. The percentages, though, of individuals, and particularly the further you get down the spectrum of narcissism, the percentages of people that are able to do that when they're on that narcissistic spectrum are pretty low. Because a very high percentage won't do that, won't do what this relative did. And then sometimes as they get older, it just gets worse.
Yes.
I've talked to individuals, and they've got grandma and grandpa that are 75 years old, and grandpa is not only criticizing anybody that thinks differently, but he's very unapologetic and ruins family events, et cetera, et cetera. And so you've got that dimension too, and that's not at all uncommon.
Right, that's right. So of the people you see that have made change, how much of the change is truly meaningful and long lasting?
It's kind of hard to quantify. Again, it would be pretty low. Now, let's keep in mind, narcissism is a pattern on a spectrum, and it's hard to put percentages on it. But let's say you have somebody that's at the 50% level and above. Sometimes when you're below that, it's like the narcissistic characteristics show up, but you can contain it. But there are times when they just get where it's like, no, when push comes to shove, I go more and more in the direction of my selfishness and control and manipulation. The further you go down that spectrum, 60% level, 70% level, and you get all the way to the 90% level, which is malignant narcissism and NPD, et cetera. The further you go down there, let's say you're at the 75% level and beyond, the odds are incredibly low. And so typically the ones who do change have enough of that self-reflection to where they're still able to go into it. They may have had a mentor or a friend or someone that was more pensive, and they kind of liked it. They kind of got away from it, but they've got a little something to draw from or draw upon. But many, so 10% that are at 50% and beyond might have a chance. And I may be optimistic in saying that.
No, I think that's where kind of what I was saying, where it's the patterns of narcissistic behavior versus narcissistic personality disorder, which, I think, especially on social media today, and the way that the terms are being overused and incorrectly used, I think it's important to differentiate between those two.
Yeah, and we need to be careful as we use that. You'll often note when I'm on my YouTube channel, I often talk about people with narcissistic tendencies.
Yes.
Which is a little bit different. We all have our moments of selfishness and too controlling, and we interrupt and we don't show empathy and things like that. But then when we're called out, and it's like, "Oop, my bad," and
That's right.
we make adjustments, and we get better as we age, hopefully. But there's just some that if you call them out, they'll just look at you and say, "I don't know what your planet you're on, but that you're not accurate," and they lie to themselves. And so they can't receive the truth. It's kind of like their own self-directed lies. I'm a good guy, or I didn't do that. I wasn't that bad. Or if you think that it was terrible, it really wasn't what you thought. And so they buy into that so much that it allows them to go into that rationalization that I mentioned, and they just can't get beyond that. It's like they're trapped by their own defenses. They're trapped by their own insecurity.
Do you think that you'd mentioned empathy a couple of times? Do you think that empathy is something that can be taught?
Yes. And and we go back to those early years. You have a 9-year-old. I have a granddaughter who lives nearby, and we see her all the time. She's almost 6. And Pops is constantly thinking, okay, she's in the teaching zone right now. And I know those poor kids, they don't know what they've got.
They have no idea.
Well, you got me, you got Jamie.
Poor things. Like I said, I'm the worst profession to have.
But we have to practice on somebody, don't we?
Yeah,
right? But with a little child, you can, for example, if they say, well, my granddaughter had to deal where somebody at school was being mean to her. And I was saying, how did that make you feel? And, you talk about that. And then you also say, I'm guessing that, let's just say Chloe is the girl's name. I'm guessing that Chloe was having a bad day too. What do you think was going on inside of her? And it's, the kid will stop. It's like, I don't know.
I kind of did that too, because that's not where I would have gone.
Yeah. You think maybe she was having a bad day?
I love that.
Yeah. And so it's like, I want to acknowledge your emotions. Let's put it in the context that everybody has emotions and what's going on over there. And so you teach them how to do that, or you teach kindness. And it's like, sometimes there are people that feel lonely. Have you ever felt lonely? Yeah. Well, I wonder if Greg over here feels lonely sometimes. How might you be able to help Greg when he's feeling that way? And it's just teaching. And we have books there, that teach that. Now, with a 15-year-old, you have to get a little bit more sophisticated. It's like, well, in our family, we stand for A, B, and C, and we've got this situation over there. What do you think is different between you and the Smith family over here? What have you noticed there? And you talk about it, and you notice there's no judgment. There's no condemnation. There's no what I call othering. They're just terrible people, if they're different from me. But it's just being objective. And so, yes, it can be taught. Now, the older you get,
that's where I was going next. Yeah.
And that's why it becomes so difficult, because if they don't have that training, then at some point it's like, nah, that's not for me. I mean, that touchy-feely stuff. And, my one relative that really did make his breakthrough, good for him, but there are 9 others that are unlike him out of every 10 that won't.
Yeah. Yeah. So with those, this was years ago, and I can't even remember what year it was, what journal it was in, but there was a study that was done where they were trying to teach people who had been diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder. They were teaching them empathy skills. And what ended up happening was those empathy skills were utilized, but not to teach empathy. They were utilized as a strategy to then go and manipulate other people with this ability to pretend they were empathetic. So I'm curious to know, as you get older, right, and you're on, let's say, the extreme end of the spectrum, right, and you're in that kind of category of narcissistic personality disorder, would that be a pretty common thing for them to be able to, and I want listeners to understand this, that there is a difference between being empathetic and faking empathy. And I think as we get to that end that you were talking about, and let's say they're being taught empathy in some sort of court mandated, I don't know what it would look like, but right. But can you kind of explain to people how empathy can be used as a manipulative strategy and why people are sucked into this, this kind of game of, well, they seem to care when, you and I can say, well, no, they're pretending to care. And how you even as a relative, friends, family, whatever the case may be, how do you even wrap your brain around that as the non-narcissistic partner, friends, that whatever, that this person lacks empathy? Because that's a pretty scary concept.
Yeah, it is. And part of the problem is, if you're not a narcissistic person, you want to cheer for someone when you see them picking up on something that's really helpful and good. Okay, we have the term cognitive empathy. Okay, for example, if you say, I'm going to this group function over here, and it's going to be these kind of people, and I've had some negative experiences with them before, so I'm a little anxious. And cognitive empathy is like, oh, so you feel anxious when you're around these individuals? Huh? How about that? And so you can know about what somebody else is feeling. That's the cognition. But then you take it a little bit further, and the narcissist can have cognitive empathy. But then what they'll do is they go into the space of what we call dark empathy. And that's what you were describing. The dark empathy is like, well, okay, if I show my cognition that I know that Jamie feels anxious, then I think I can work that to my advantage. And so then they can talk to you about all sorts of things. And then 5 or 6 days later, when you're just expressing a frustration, then that person who's using now dark empathy, they can say, Jamie, you're tense about everything. I mean, look at what you were like last week. You're feeling upset. And so they'll take their knowledge and then they'll use it against you. And it's like, well, now that I've exposed myself, that I'm kind of a sitting duck. And the narcissist thinks, I've got a tool now.
I got it. Yes. I use that. I use that a lot of times when I'm explaining early relationships, right? Love bombing, and how, if in the beginning you feel this immense calmness or this immense kind of just vulnerability with someone where you feel like you can tell them everything, and you just met them and you're giving them your deepest, darkest secrets about your upbringing and this and your insecurities and your vulnerabilities. And I said, and I was explaining it to somebody, and I was saying, and they kind of store it in the back, like in the card catalog. And I just remember it was a college student, and the college student looked at me, what's a card catalog?
Okay, never mind.
Oh, yeah, all right, never mind. But
when you talk about,
right. So, but you're absolutely right. They store it away for their personal use later on to do exactly what you said. So they have this mask of empathy, and it looks a lot like that. And so if you know that this is kind of what tends to happen, that it's used against you, and it's not helpful to tell them this, as somebody who's in a relationship with somebody or has a parent that's a narcissist, what do you do with that information? How do you change kind of your boundaries in response to that?
Well, first, let's recognize that people who do what we're talking about here tend to lean more in the direction of covert narcissism.
Exactly.
They may not be as brash and loud and selfish, overtly selfish as their overt counterparts. And so that's what makes it difficult.
Yes.
So first and foremost, you remind yourself, if you do have a good vibe with someone, you can still have a good vibe with them a year later. If it's real.
Yeah, if it's real. That's right.
Rush.
That's right.
Narcissists want to get you onto the end of their hook quickly. And so they can come on in a really pleasant kind of way. I remember, and I'm sure you've had these conversations. There's this woman who's perpetually looking for Mr. Right. And she came to my office and said, well, I had this blind date with this guy. We met at 6 o'clock on a Friday evening, and we wound up staying up till about 3 o'clock in the morning, just talking. And we shared our life story, and it was wonderful, and it was incredible. And it's like, okay, this is a little crass, but I said, when you're with somebody like that, you don't want to disrobe and take all your clothes off the first time you meet them. And in the same way, emotionally, you don't want to disrobe emotionally and just do it the first time you meet them.
And I think the problem is it just feels, everybody's so, everybody, like these days, everyone's lonely, everyone's isolated. COVID really did us in with that stuff. People are really looking to connect. We love that. We're human beings. We like to connect in it, and I think I know the issue is that it just feels so good to have somebody who just wants to talk, right? And unload and share these emotions. Great. And so I always tell people, when you're in those situations, it's, and people blame themselves. I can't believe I did. It feels so good. Who wouldn't want that, right? Who wouldn't want that experience? The problem is that when you take a step back, and I'm sure you're wonderful, but it's bizarre. When you take yourself out of it, it's a bizarre thing to do.
Yeah, and I know this sounds a little negative, but I would tell my patients, particularly as you're getting to know someone, you need to factor in a certain amount of pessimism.
Yes.
And that sounds negative, doesn't it?
No, it's honest.
Yeah, because everybody, like it or not, has their flaws. Sometimes their flaws turn into a very uncomfortable dark side. And so it's like, I know that there are some things about you that are probably unseemly, and I need to allow some time to see when that's going to show up. And in dating, I tell folks, do not be in a rush. And don't just put yourself out there all of a sudden, just quickly and immediately. Let time show you what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
Because time does have a way of revealing truth. And so patience is such a necessary ingredient. And when the narcissist wants to push, then it's like, okay, good to know. Why are you so overeager? Because there's another term that we have terms left and right in this field, but we
love our terms.
Narcissistic supply. Narcissists want somebody who's going to feed their ego. And so they can come on and give you all these sweet candy kind of understanding statements and talk to you like you're the kindest person I've ever met, or I love it when you talk that way. And it's like, wow, this is real, like you just said, that feels good.
That's right.
And yet patience is so premium, because you just don't quite know until you've seen that individual in many different occasions, in many different scenarios.
So what would you tell people as kind of a rule of thumb if they're listening and they're saying, that's kind of how my relationship's going, or, well, how am I going to know if it's real or it's not real? What are some kind of things that they can do to set some limits or set some boundaries, or at least kind of figure out what they're dealing with, if it is something that's negative or not?
Well, it's very necessary to watch not just how they engage with you, but how they engage with other individuals. I remember there was a man that was in my profession, and I'd had multiple interactions with him, and I was at a conference with him, and he had a teenage kid that was with him, one of his kids, and I was shocked. We were getting a bite to eat, and that the guy that I knew, I mean, he just bit that kid's head off. It's like, whoa, I did not see this. And so you want to watch and see, how do these people act when they're with family members or longtime friends? Do they tend to isolate you? Do they tend to blend well? Are they overeager? Are they dismissive? I mean, you just kind of have to just be vigilant. And because narcissists, one of the things they want to do is they want to impress you, usually either by ingratiating themselves with your system and just love bombing everybody that shows up, or they'll isolate you.
Yeah.
And it's like, we don't need to hang around with each other. Just not them. Let's just you and me.
Yeah.
And so you want to have plenty of opportunities to see them in many different experiences with a wide array of people.
I love that. And I also say, see what happens if you cancel plans. See what happens when you set a boundary.
Yeah.
What's their reaction to it?
Well, and I tell folks all the time, you're going to be able to tell most about an individual's level of personal maturity by watching how they respond to conflict.
Yes.
And
Yes.
because healthy people can manage it.
Yes.
And so if there's a conflict and we have a problem, then healthy people can say, let's break it down.
That's right.
And they'll be honest about who they are, and they can be diplomatic in the way they discuss. Whereas unhealthy individuals, like, I don't go there, or they blame.
Yeah, no, it's like what you said, is to bring it kind of full circle back to what you said actually in the very beginning, which is, when you have somebody that's on that extreme end of narcissistic personalities or like higher narcissistic traits, and you bring this to their attention, they're going to rationalize it. They're not going to admit to anything. They're not going to want to talk about any conflict. They're not going to want to find a resolution unless the act of finding a resolution benefits them in some way. That's it. Yeah.
Isn't that sad? I mean,
it really is.
It wouldn't be nice if we could just say, well, I know that I'm going to be trustworthy and open, and I know you will be too. And part of the problem with healthy individuals is they can sometimes make that assumption, and the narcissists think, oh, good, you're making that assumption. I can make that work for me. And
that's right. That's right. And just really quickly before we end, I get this a lot sometimes from people that'll say, I feel that you stigmatize that diagnosis so much. And, the interesting thing is, for you and I as therapists, our goal in life is to help people, right? So for us to say that for it to be really a low percentage that somebody's going to improve, it takes a lot for us to say that, right? It like breaks our hearts to have to say that. So, I do think it's really sad. And I do think that it sounds so bad because it unfortunately is that bad.
Well, and I'm not going to get into how I got to this number, but I've hypothesized that about 20% of the adult population is skilled at reflective thinking. Now, that doesn't mean that the other 80% are all narcissists. But there's.
You think that 20% is skilled at
they really want to dive and say, do the who am I kind of stuff.
That's a low number.
Yeah.
I thought you meant the flip.
If you and I were to convince you, if I were to say, hey, let me show you how I got that number, I can tell you how I got it. But in fact, I have a psychologist friend that says, I think you're being a little too optimistic.
Wow.
But I mean, go to Walmart and just watch people going by. Because I do at the grocery store, and how many of these people like to have deep conversations?
Yeah,
and go to organizations or wherever, and there are a lot of folks that they just want easy answers. They want easy the things to fall into place, and then when conflict comes up, they don't know what to do with it.
Yeah, you're right. Right, because we're taught at such an early age in our society in general that feeling bad is bad.
Yeah.
No one wants to feel uncomfortable. And, it's hard for people to realize that feeling uncomfortable brings you to a much better place.
As opposed to saying when strain comes, well, this is a learning opportunity. I wonder what I'm going to be able to learn about you, about myself.
Yes. I agree.
That's really different from what that narcissistic individual is like.
It is. So Les, this was amazing. Thank you so much. And I definitely want to have you back on. You're brilliant. You're so good explaining this in a way that just breaks it down and makes it so understandable and relatable for people. Where can people find you at your amazing YouTube channel and all of your good stuff?
Well, we got it easy. The YouTube channel is called Surviving Narcissism. My podcast is called the Surviving Narcissism Podcast. I have a website, survivingnarcissism.tv. We have it .tv because we have some video stuff on there. So it's pretty easy. So we're all over the internet, and I've been blessed that we've been able to have just a real good platform to speak about it from. And really, we're talking about human nature. And my big thing is I want people to know love. I want you to know dignity. I want you to know peace. And it means that we need to get rid of some of that clutter. And I want to cleanse myself, and I want to be with individuals who will say, I'm with you. I want to do that too. I call the people that watch on the program, I call them Team Healthy. That's what we're here for.
I love that.
So we're really accessible out there all the way on the internet.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. This was amazing and wonderful. And like I said, we'll definitely have you back on. Thank you for taking the time. It's an honor.
And I'm so pleased for your work, and I just hope nothing but the best for you, Jamie. We will be talking again.
Absolutely. All right. Bye, everyone. See you next time. Hi, everyone. It's Dr. Z, and I am thrilled to announce the launch of my summer support series, Narcissistic Abuse Live Virtual Support Group. This is for those who are either currently experiencing narcissistic abuse or who have experienced narcissistic abuse in relationships of all kinds. You can register for the support group series on my website, drjamiezuckerman.com, and click the Workshops tab and scroll until you see Summer Support Series Live Virtual Support Group. This is a 4-session support group. Each group is an hour long from July 8th, July 15th, July 22nd, and July 29th, Mondays 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Again, to register and to get more info, head to my website, drjamiezuckerman.com, click on the Workshops tab, or if you have any questions or need additional information, please email info@drjamiezuckerman.com. Again, that's info@drjamiezuckerman.com. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Next Up Narcissism. I hope you found it useful, but most importantly, I hope you found it validating. Want to work one-on-one with me? Visit my website at drjamiezuckerman.com to book a personalized coaching session, and be sure to check out my on-demand workshops on topics like co-parenting with a narcissist, life after leaving, anxiety management strategies, and more. Again, that's drjamiezuckerman.com. You'll also find links to my interactive workbooks, merchandise, resources, and newsletter sign-up. Next Up Narcissism is as much your podcast as it is mine. I want to hear your feedback and what you want to hear. So make sure to leave a podcast review wherever you listen, or send an email to nextup@drjamiezuckerman.com. Again, that's nextup@drjamiezuckerman.com. Be sure to subscribe so that you never miss an episode. And as always, thank you so much for listening. Make sure to tune in next week to see what's up next on Next Up Narcissism.